Deku gets a lot of hate, but not for me.
Want from a protagonist? I imagine that I will get as many different answers to this as I have viewers on this video. As the focal point of most stories, protagonists are often incredibly important and incredibly subjective. Depending on what you look for in fiction, what you need in a protagonist will vary as well.
Yeah.
However, I think there are some qualities that many will agree are beneficial to both the character and the story they are in.
Thematically relevant.
And one such character I have recently enjoyed and fallen in love with a lot is My Hero Academia's Izuku Deku Midoriya. One incredibly striking thing to me regarding Deku is scale. A lot of adolescent power fiction within which Battle Shonen is located tries to over-exaggerate and thus oversimplify the environment the story takes place in and the stories and issues that emerge from it. Often you will find destroyed villages, slaughtered families, unyielding...
So basically he's saying because of like how he gotta work for his power because his body break every time he uses it. Understandable.
Cartoonish levels of cruelty and misery. See Naruto and One Piece, for example. While this approach has its merits and is by no means inherently bad or weak, I do think it has its limits in their universe, bro, I guess it fits past a certain level of point. It makes
in their universe they prompted to like learn how to use their powers first.
Into a bit of a caricature with clearly justified good people and ridiculously evil and cruel bad guys. And while that can be used well, it often ends up losing the relatable human element that I like so much in my stories. Compared to all of that,
I don't know, some of that shit in Naruto is very humanizing,
downright
for sure.
Intimate. Deku wasn't tortured, he didn't lose a limb or a family member, he didn't experience war or any life-threatening violence for that matter at all. He was just bullied and isolated and ostracized and had his dreams repeatedly crushed. On a global scale, these issues
he got handed everything he got
compared to the rest that we discussed earlier. But here is where scale comes in. The world of MHA, more so than most Battle Shonen settings, is incredibly grounded in reality. Besides just straight up being our world, the societal structures and environment, as well as the general standard of life, is incredibly similar to modern day Japan and by extension us in the West as well. So it would naturally follow that all these issues faced by the characters in Deku in particular would be a lot smaller in scale and a lot more relevant to the modern first world lifestyle. In the world of Naruto, bullying and feeling left out aren't really presentable issues, considering this is a setting where
it's presented in Naruto, but
the norm.
Naruto just chose a different way to go about it. He's like, he was like a little menace, bro. He's walking through that bitch doing whatever. So it still made people see him.
Sasuke's loss of his clan
people was not fucking with Deku at all.
Place and kind of ridiculous. And yeah, you could argue that the story loses the more grand and obvious scope of such disasters and backstories. The slaughter of the Uchiha was a perfect motivator for Sasuke, as was the destruction of Ohara. However, I would say that what Deku as a character gains in return for this loss is not any less valuable. Because he lives in a world very similar to ours and experiences issues that we can understand on a much more personal level, his story immediately becomes more intimate and relatable to us. When you see the murder of the Uchiha or Red Leg Zeph eating his leg, you go, damn, that's sad. And probably also feel sad a bit. You might even cry depending on your age. But it usually stops there because these events, while obviously tragic, simply don't really translate into our lives and experiences very well.
But that don't mean it's not sad. It's sad. Like, well, the Itachi one, when they showed us that, before they told us the rest of the backstory, that was just crazy. We didn't know what the fuck he did, why he did it, but he slaughtered his entire village. We didn't feel sad about that at all. Him on the other hand, we was sad about that. We was. That was just a sad moment.
We didn't lose our clans, we didn't eat our legs to protect some child. But when you see Deku being bullied and having his dreams and ambitions crushed, all because of something he had no control over, that is immediately a lot more relevant to our own modern day experience and therefore has a lot more interesting potential to say something about us and our own stories. And this immediately makes this entire situation a lot more engaging, at least theoretically. That's one reason I love Deku. He presents an incredibly realistic, relatable, and grounded take on the shonen MC formula.
No,
This
I
even
could
extends
understand
to
the
more
relatable
subtle
and
things,
grounded
like
take,
for
but
example the
this
fact
don't
that
mean
his
the other shit
speculation and
wasn't
work
sad.
is
You
mostly
know what I'm
limited
saying?
to his notebooks and research as opposed to physical strength training. While some see this as evidence that he didn't try hard enough, I would argue that it's more an indication of just how
Who the fuck said that? If you saying that he didn't try hard enough because he was in here always taking notes, I feel like that was
aware
him
of the
damn near
hopelessness of
being
the
a genius.
situation he is. He
He knew
is,
more
at
shit
the
about
time
being
the
a
story
hero
starts,
before
14
he
years of
was a
age.
hero.
The bare
That's the crazy
minimum
part.
age you would reasonably be able to begin strength training without endangering your muscles permanently. So he didn't exactly just wait around before we get to see him.
Facts.
He was straight up too young to just get started. But even then, he understands that doing that would be kind of pointless anyway. No matter how big his bicep would be, there is simply no way he would ever stack up to people like Endeavor and All Might, at least while quirkless. It's not a lack of will, it's a realistic understanding of the hard limits and ceilings you are faced with in this world. Hell, the very first sentence we hear in the series is,
"Here's the sad truth. All men are not created equal."
Deku 100% understands this line because
He
he has
understood
been
that
faced with the
early.
consequences of it for his entire life.
That's why he's very grateful for his
So to
powers.
me, him not becoming a bodybuilder in hope of fighting literal walking volcanoes makes him a lot more reasonable and again a lot more realistic. In a different world, maybe, he could just become so strong physically.
I mean,
that he
compare
could
yourself
take
to
out Endeavor
All
and
Might out of
but
all people.
again, this
That's
world
that's
is
just a
very
high ass
grounded.
reach
It
for
has
anybody.
very strict rules, very similar to our own world. And I'm sorry, but no amount of training would ever get a quirkless Deku to the point where he can compete with Endeavor. This is also reflected in how he receives his signature chance at his dream, All Might's quirk One for All. In many stories, the hero is often either a chosen one or takes their opportunity by sheer force of will and ambition.
Yeah,
Both
my
of
boy
these
Luffy,
examples
yeah.
are inspiring in their own ways, but they, again, lack a natural connection to our own lives.
I don't know. Luffy a little different. Like, Luffy literally just like, whatever I want, I'm gonna take that shit and I'm gonna put my first foot forward. All I know how to do is fight. That's a way of thinking, bro. It's like, that's actually a very relatable way of thinking. Like, you can honestly say that.
With Deku, however, the situation is quite different. Some detractors call it pure luck, devoid of any hard work or merit, that All Might just so happened to be there and give him the
Nah, it
solution
wasn't
to the
luck.
problem.
It wasn't luck. It was.
And
He
that
told him
is-
why. He told him you leapt in there without a quirk and still was trying to help no matter what. That wasn't luck.
Representation of the entire situation.
That was not luck at all.
Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And yes, All Might running into Deku is an incredible stroke of luck that no one could have predicted. However, All Might deciding to entrust his power to Deku has nothing to
do with
luck.
that, exactly.
The only reason he does that is because Deku inspires him with his heroic actions. Deku meeting All Might is luck. Deku receiving All Might's power is a direct consequence of his years of resilience and his unbroken spirit in the face of overwhelming odds against him and his dream.
Bro,
in a world
honestly,
that
I just
doesn't
think
accommodate for
it was just literally
Another-
something that was just in him. Literally just in him, bro. That was something that everybody couldn't have done. Just like it was a crowd of people there. None of them was helping. It didn't matter if they had quirks or they did or they didn't. Nobody moved but Deku. His body moved without him even thinking. That's the point.
I really like about Deku is how emotionally open he is by comparison. A lot of shonen protagonists have 3 emotions they will express: dumbassery, anger, and resilience.
What he not finna do is act like my nigga Luffy has never cried. Don't listen, bro. I'm all for this. Deku. Don't get to trying to get on my nigga, bro. Cause dumbassiness, you got him fucked up.
And while those emotions do embody the character archetype very well and give us most of what we need out of them, I do think that it makes a lot of them seem a bit emotionally distant. Like,
When?
we know what they want, and
Bro, I can name 100 times. Well, not 100, but I mean many times Luffy in that bitch literally crying, not knowing what to do.
But we don't know exactly how they feel about the things surrounding them. With Deku, this is not the case. While some people find his more frequent crying and emotional presence annoying and unjustified,
The levels come down as the seasons go on. Just to
I'd
let
say
you know.
that it makes him a lot more resonant and convincing as a character. He is an emotional 14-year-old bullying victim, so him crying at things like having his ambitions validated for the first time or having the people around him hurt is not only perfectly reasonable,
No, it's
but also
crazy.
gives
He playing
insight
in the
into his emotional
background.
state and situation.
They
Sure,
they
the things he
the
cries
theme
about
that they
are
usually
not on
play,
the same
especially
level
when
as,
something's
for
ramping
example,
up.
the things Luffy or Naruto cry about. But again,
It's
you
low,
cannot
though.
really
It's low.
compare those because the worlds are just so different. Also, his crying contrasts wonderfully with his other, more traditionally shonen emotional moments. When he tells Endeavor to check himself before he wrecks himself, or when he grimly acknowledges the plight
He
of
never said
Gentle and La Brava, he shows that he can be just as resilient and strong as the MCs that came before him. But thanks to his more emotional side, he feels less like a power fantasy and more like a realistic kid trying his best to succeed in a world full of hardships and obstacles. There's just a lot more of an emotional context to his actions thanks to the moments where he breaks down the facade and starts crying, starts being doubtful, starts being unsure. This makes him seem a lot more emotionally well-rounded and even mature at times.
Yeah, I feel
For
that,
example, if you approached him and told him that he actually just got lucky and doesn't deserve his power, well, he
What?
would probably agree. He himself is quite doubtful of his own worthiness, especially after meeting Nighttime.
Very.
He understands that he was very lucky to be in the position he was in, and while it was his own heroic actions that
But he's the only person that can fully say that he's not gonna do nothing with that power. Like that power, even though he might have been lucky to get it, bro, only he with the will that he got, bro, and just the work ethic that he got can make it as great as it's gonna end up being.
by All Might and led to him giving his power, it was still a stroke of luck. He himself is quite
Like, bro,
doubtful,
he used to break his
but
body
he
every
understands
time he did
that
something.
many people do believe and have put their trust in him. So, regardless of his own doubts, he pushes forward in hopes of validating the expectations people placed onto him and learning to believe in himself. Instead of being free of all doubts, he simply doesn't let his doubts stop him. Just like many of us. Again, it's just more personally relevant to us normal living people. One last thing I want to highlight is his intelligence and overall
Oh
confidence.
yeah, the nigga's
We
a
often get
genius,
told
bro.
that
Not
certain
gonna lie.
characters are prodigies and geniuses, but usually never really get any elaboration on that past, oh, they can strategize very well. By comparison, we get to witness every step of Deku's process and see how he comes up with his solutions and strategies. And quite often, they are simple in execution, but brilliant in idea. His adaptation into full cowl, his development of shoot style,
Facts.
or his pinning of muscular are not insanely elaborate or complex concepts, but he not only comes up with them mostly on his own, he also executes them with a consistency and natural flow that is not only impressive, but intelligent in
And let's talk about it, cause All Might is a horrible mentor. He don't ever know nothing. He never know what's going on with his power. He always telling him, "Oh, well, maybe you should figure out how to do it in a different way." And he gotta figure out how to do it by himself, cause All Might can't fucking help him, cause he's a shroom and a fucking raisin compared to what he used to be. The motherfucker can't help.
believable way. He isn't a baby Einstein, but instead a smart, observant, and sharp-minded kid, which is again more realistic than a 14-year-old calculating
No, that
the
nigga's a
angles
genius.
of movement
No
and
cap.
velocity in their heads.
He's a genius.
This is also reflected in his power progression. His power-ups are mostly centered around him finding a new way of applying the abilities he has, as opposed to some earth-shattering transformation or change. This is more gradual, more small-scale, but also makes
But
his
you
progression
understand
a lot
that
more
when you see how All
satisfying
Might
and
actually used
sells
his
his
power in the
confidence
first
and
season, you
skills
like,
and
bro, he got a
abilities
long
in
way to
lot more
go.
convincing ways. I am aware that I use the word realistic a lot in this video, and realism is not at all a shorthand to better quality. It doesn't
Yeah,
equal that
realism
in
really
any
don't
way.
mean nothing. It's an anime at the end
But
of the
when a
day.
story injects realism into
not
its
real.
world and characters in a consistent and well-constructed manner, I think it very reasonably has the potential to enhance the work by making the events and ideas presented in it more relevant to us and thus more engaging. The examples I use in comparisons from
Bro, he is
Naruto,
using all they
One
themes in the
Piece, or
background of
even
his
Black
video.
Clover are by no means inherently inferior, not at all. But I think
I
it's
love it,
important
honestly,
to
though. They
appreciate
give real
just how much
MHA
of
vibe.
MHA's realism is reflected in Deku and how that realism benefits the entire manga and anime. My Hero Academia is, essentially, a more realistic version of the shonen formula, with Deku being a more realistic and relatable iteration of the shonen protagonist.
He was just shoving a lot of realism. I feel like he could have done way better at saying why he was great, bro. And attacking the reason. I feel like if attacking the reasons why people say he not would have made for a better video. I don't know. It was cool, but I don't know. It was cool. Hey, I fuck with it. That is Deku is great, bro. Hey, like, comment, and subscribe if you new. Put down in the comment section if you want to see me watch anything else. I will watch anything. Hey, and I'm out, bro.